We're going to move forward with reflections on the 2022 World Forestry Congress. The panel will share their reflections from attending the World Forestry Congress last month, what they learned, and things we should consider in leading up to the Women's Forest Congress in October. The panelists will be Tamberly Conway, founder of Conservation Connections; Lacey Rose, registered professional forester, County of Renfrew, Ontario, and Maria Chiarelli, manager of youth and mentorship programs for SFI. So I am going to begin with Tamberly, and she is going to give her thoughts on the pre-Congress and the Congress sessions. And so Tamberly, how did you engage in the World Forestry Congress?
Thank you so much, Mia. It's really exciting to be here and share. And I would say the networking at the Congress was truly phenomenal. Actually, a couple of weeks prior to the Congress, they offered a youth engagement and networking session where I learned a great deal. I met several people there who we linked around WhatsApp. It's a wonderful tool if you don't have WhatsApp, and we were able to meet during the Congress. And so just WhatsApping one another, where should we connect? And truly, I just love the diversity of people during each session. There were 4 panelists generally, and people from globally. So you had real global voices, people from different cultures, bringing different values. And that was also a wonderful networking opportunity to bring in those and weave in that cultural relevancy into the thematic discussions. But also around the events focusing on local food, and then also these powerful cultural theatrical performances. It really brought people together around the culture of the area. So I love that idea earlier on around and the video today of bringing this around our host state. And so that would be really beautiful. But what resonated with me really around this Congress was the blossom of hope. And so it was a very positive and enlightening and really infusing Congress in which we all brought back something.
And Tamberly, can you talk a little bit about your engagement as far as nature therapy during the World Forestry Congress as well?
Absolutely, yes. So I had the honor of serving as a moderator for a session. It was a side session, but I must say it was a very well curated side session hosted by the Korea Forest Welfare Institute, the Korea Forest Therapy Forum, and the Korea Forest Service. And so it was a high-level event with many delegates from around the world. And this was in collaboration also with the University of British Columbia and the USDA Forest Service. And so we focused upon the forests for human health and well-being. And actually the next day, now they also offered side events, or not side events rather, but field trips or field excursions throughout the entire Congress. And so the day after this presentation, in which 4, again, global leaders, Michiko Martin, who is a regional forester for the Southwestern region, was actually one of the presenters. She had to come in remotely, but all of these people bringing different foci around the research and the practice, and again, very different practices around the world. So it's a powerful discussion. And then the next day we got to visit one of the national forest therapy centers, the very first ever to be established in South Korea, and also considered to be a healing forest. So it was really phenomenal to link, the presentation with the actual field excursion, and then meeting many of the researchers from that space who shared the research around how to collect data within our forest settings, both in urban and rural environments. And so all of the delegates from the Forest Service and Forest Service partners who came to that excursion, we all brought back something very powerful to bring back into our communities, agencies, organizations. And so we're excited to do that.
Thank you so much, Tamberly. Lacey, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk to us a little bit about the Tree Talk presentation.
Yeah, so I was really honored to be able to attend the World Forestry Congress. It was my first Congress ever of any kind. And I was there in a couple of capacities. So as a inaugural board member for a new network that has just launched, the Global Network for Forestry Young Professionals, 4YP. We launched the network at the Congress, and we also organized a few things. So we had a pre-Congress networking event for young forestry professionals, where our goal was to bring folks together that were attending the Congress. And many folks like myself would know very few people in attendance, or maybe no one. So we had some mingling activities to try to create a buddy system, so that if someone didn't know anyone before they showed up, that maybe they will walk away knowing at least one person, so who could be their ally for the rest of the Congress. And then we also organized a special session in the event focusing on storytelling by young professionals in forest sector, and also organizations that have programs to help young professionals grow. And that's where I delivered my Tree Talk, which was basically my career story to date, along with others, including Maria, who's also speaking next. So that was well received and attended, I think, to have that more natural kind of segment in a giant Congress that can get a little heavy with scientific and other high-level talk.
Thank you, Lacey. And Maria, can you talk to us a little bit about your experience about the mentorship program?
Yeah, for sure. Nice to meet you all, and thank you so much for letting me be a panelist today. So I was part of the World Forestry Congress because we worked in partnership with the Congress to create an international 6-month mentorship cohort of over 100 participants. And what was really neat about it is that we had representation from 37 different countries and youth ranging from 18 to 35 years old. So we launched this program online early January of this year. And since then, mentors and mentees have been working together over the past few months, leading up to the mentor and mentee meetup in Seoul, Korea. And through the mentorship program, we provided meaningful inclusion for young people in the forest sector. And with the support of their mentors, mentees have been developing skills like communication, networking, goal setting, as well as about learning the different opportunities in the forest sector. And so at the conference, we had over 20 participants of mentees and mentors join this mentor-mentee meetup. And I was really grateful to have been part of it and be able to facilitate a space where mentors and mentees were able to share their successes, meet each other, create new friends, and create positive intergenerational dialogue.
Thank you so much, Maria. And so I think it's very important for us to hear what took place at the World Forestry Congress and what went well, and things that we could also translate into the Women's Forest Congress in October. And so with your experience at the World Forestry Congress, what makes a Congress different from a conference based on your experience from the World Forestry Congress? And we can begin with you, Tamberly.
Thank you, Mia. I would say that the delegates, bringing in delegates, just as I was so excited to hear, is going to be happening for the Women's Forest Congress. So having folks that are really focused on gathering important information, gathering perspectives, and then bringing that to bear, following up to create synergy and continue connection. And one of the organizations and agencies that I mentioned previously around Forest for Human Health, we developed a memorandum of agreement on site, and it was signed mostly virtually, mostly in person, and Michiko Martin signed virtually, but we are then coming back together during the international conference on forest therapy in Vancouver in connection with the University of British Columbia. So again, seeing the, as someone said, planting a seed earlier and then nurturing that seed. So seeing the continued effects after the Congress. So really the in-person connection, as someone mentioned earlier, is just so powerful. And having that to nurture the growth and expansion. So I think that, and then also to Maria's content, you know, what she's talking about here is youth engagement. There was a true focus on engaging youth voice and youth empowerment, especially during the keynote panels, having youth on each of those panels. And so I'd love to see that infusion here at the Women's Forest Congress as well.
Thank you, Tamberly. Maria, I'm gonna jump to you and then Lacey.
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the main differences that I've noticed are the tangible outcomes that generate from congresses. So for example, one of the reasons that the World Forestry Congress reached out to us to create this mentorship program was because at the last Congress, youth participants had identified lack of mentorship as a key barrier for them entering the workforce. So we were able to work together to create this program that met the needs of mentors and mentees. And we also provided training for mentors and mentees to be successful. So this year, youth delegates also had a call to action presented, and there were many key priorities to strengthen the position of youth and young professionals in the forest sector. And some of the main things were things like ensuring inclusive and equitable access to high quality forest education and training, achieving gender equality and empowering women in the forest sector, and working to ensure political representation of youth. And it's been really great to hear that the Women's Forest Congress is prioritizing action as well. And there'll be opportunities for us to participate.
Thanks, Maria. And Lacey.
Yeah, so as someone who is a practicing boots on the ground forester, it was kind of eye-opening for me to be at an event with so much high level global discussion. And I would say that there's power in looking, learning, and being outside of your lane. So that was the main positive for me. Some things that I found a little difficult were that there were no paper programs. So I felt like I had to do a lot of planning to know where to go and what I wanted to see at any time. So if you're gonna maybe change anything to improve yours compared to that, I would say definitely have some paper programs. And also I did feel sometimes like there was a little bit too much going on at the same time. So it was hard to choose sessions. And I think that left some kind of poorly attended in person, which is maybe a double-edged sword of hybrid events too. So just to be a little cognizant of maybe overbooking times so that people can kind of go to more things, maybe having less available, but having more engagement with more subjects.
Thank you. And the last question for you ladies. What perspectives do you have on what the Women's Forest Congress can do to prepare for our October event? And Lacey also already alluded to a few, but I will begin with Maria. We'll then have Tamberly and then Lacey.
Yeah, from a youth perspective, I think it's important that youth are inviting and be participating at panels as experts and being part of those decision-making opportunities. And I think we can also be mindful of creating safe spaces for Black, Indigenous, people of color, youth with disabilities, folks from the LGBTQ+ community, and other underrepresented communities to also share their experiences in the forest sector on such a large platform.
And I believe I would add, it hasn't been mentioned here necessarily, but it does weave into the cultural values and vibrancy that I think we'd all love to see shared at the Congress. But this focus on art and nature and forest connections, I think there could be a real powerful value there. Also weaving in youth engagement, you know, oftentimes in communities, in diverse communities, this is something that really emerges. And so I feel like it would be a great offering. That was one of the beautiful things at the World Forestry Congress, was to walk through just these magnificent displays of these types of interconnections, because and I love seeing, that there's going to be kind of like a wellness room and wellness kind of scattered throughout the event, because we all need to reboot and rejuvenate during our time together. And even though, it's rejuvenating to be with one another and be in conversation and be very in depth, sometimes we do need to kind of escape into spaces where we can kind of reconnect with self and then re-nurture. And so I think bringing some of those components might be helpful. And also, yes, just again reiterating the diversity piece. And I notice such diversity within the Women's Forest Congress, and so I have no doubt that is going to be, a true focus. And so I'm really grateful for that. And with Maria at the helm around this youth engagement, we're going to be great. So thank you.
I would maybe just add that the World Forestry Congress did do a really great job with incorporating the local culture into the displays and the events and the openings and everything. And it's a good thing, because otherwise there isn't really any time to see that on your own, because everything is just so jam-packed. So that is important to make sure that when people travel to the Women's Forestry Congress, they do feel like they've been to Minneapolis instead of just at an airport hotel. And that's hard to achieve, but it seems like there are definitely opportunities to do that with food and events and things. And also, don't underestimate the need for organized networking events. Just because there is a networking room does not mean that people will go to it. And often introverts, like many of us can be, unless we are put in a situation where it is a networking event, it's hard to meet people. So just allowing time for that informal gathering is really valuable.
Well, thank you ladies so much for sharing your perspective on the World Forestry Congress.